Hi and welcome to the All Things ITSM Global Podcast, coming to you from SITS in London. I'm Kirsty McGowan, I'm here with Rosetta.
Hello.
Patrick Bolger.
Hello.
And we're chatting with Karen Ferris. Welcome,
Hello,
Karen.
thank you. So, Women in IT Week is running at the same time as SITS, and you've done the keynote today here. So can you tell us how that went and what it was about?
Yes,
so the question that we posed so I hosted a panel, and the question that we posed is, do we need to promote equality in IT? And look, the feedback was great, it was really well received. We had a diverse panel, from different industry sectors. And we sort of explored both sides of it, that it's not just, getting the men on board to recognise that we should be equal, but we're also our own worst enemies. So we need to look at both sides of the coin. And one of the things we also explored and became a recurring theme was it's really about getting further back into the education sector. So at the moment there's not as many women doing the STEM subjects, science and technology, and coming into IT. So I was sort of asking, is that because it's perceived as male-dominated, geeky environment, and are we actually promoting the sort of roles that are available in IT that women might want to take up? So it was an interesting panel conversation. So, yeah.
Were you surprised by any of the outcomes?
There was one thing that was interesting that one of the panelists said, and I won't mention the organisation they worked for, that actually offered to freeze eggs in order to keep her at work.
Really?
That's how it was perceived.
Wow.
We all went, what? Really? And like she said, it wasn't compulsory, it was an option if you wanted to do it, but the message that the organisation were giving her was, we don't want you to have children yet, you need to stay. That was a surprise. But it was interesting, and I was talking, my sister's here visiting as well, and we were talking afterwards, and she was saying it could be perceived as a positive thing. I could be 20-something, don't have children yet, actually do want to stay in the organisation, and they're offering me this service, which would be very expensive if I had to do it myself. I was of the opposing opinion is that you do not offer that to an employee. It's you should be offering flexible working, have your children when you want. In this day and age, if we can't work remotely and all that sort of thing, then But
I have to say, there's a friend of mine, Sue Black. I don't know if any of you guys are aware of her. She's a doctor in computing, and she was actually championing a lot of stuff for equality in the workplace, particularly something she called Tech Mums, which was actually an initiative to show mums who basically wanted to get back to work, actually getting into technology it isn't that hard, and actually the technology jobs that are available are ideally suited, and they have just worked wonders. They really have. They've got an awful lot of women that previously wouldn't have considered a career in technology, actually writing code, developing apps and things like that. It's a fantastic, look at that, just Tech Mums. It's, I don't know if she's extended the initiative or the initiative itself is extended, but definitely here in the UK it's making a fantastic difference. And incidentally, they are looking for sponsorships, and they've got loads of money to chuck away.
That sounds like an interesting initiative.
I also saw one of the other points that was very interesting. I can't remember who made it, but within the session, they were talking about the fact there was some tests run by one of the universities in the US, which actually, women being their own worst enemies, they said when they played these series of words back to them, they could tell that women themselves were prejudiced against women being
yes, absolutely. I think it was Harvard, and I can't remember. You can Google it, and it asks you to do questions very quick or answer questions very quickly, and it comes out with your stance on thing. And the lady who mentioned it, Barbara, was she was really surprised about what it was saying about her bias in terms of certain things. And we are our own worst enemy, I think, in a lot of things. There's some statistics out that say, for example, if I'm applying, as a female applying for a job, unless I believe I tick 80% of the requirements for that job, I won't apply. Men, if they tick 50, they'll apply for it. Yeah. It's like, why? And I think we need to overcome that. And I was talking about on the panel as well, to read the book, Sheryl Sandberg, the COO of Facebook, Lean In. It is the most brilliant read, and she talks all about those things and and how to foster diversity in the workplace. But she talks about being the clever girl, the geek at school. No one wants to go to the prom with her,
No.
So there's a negative connotation from men, but all the girls hated her as well because she was the clever geeky girl, So we've got to overcome the girls will be the nurses and the boys will be the doctors thing. It's a total mind shift that I think we really need to move.
Do you think it's the same globally? I mean, you're in Australia, I'm in New Zealand, we're here in the UK, we've read stuff from the US. Do you think it is the same right around the world, or are there differences? Cause
I think there are differences. I mean, they mentioned on the panel, and I don't know about a lot more women, like in India, for example, being in IT. Not sure why that necessarily is, but I think there is a difference. An interesting website to have a look at is No Ceilings, which is a data-driven program. It's the Clinton Foundation, so Hillary and the daughter, because with a C, what a name there. That's not going to be good. But the Clinton Foundation, so they basically said, well, where are we in terms of women generally in women and female issues? So they've sourced a lot of global partners, and all their stuff is about data. It's data driven, and it's a very interactive website. It's pretty cool stuff. But they looked at things like women in the workplace, education, everything. And I'm really saying, you know what, we have moved, but in the last 15 years, not enough.
Not enough. I do think it's a massive change of foot because, so I'm Irish for a start, right? But just only, a week and a bit ago, we had a referendum back in Ireland about equality in marriage. And a country which previously was kind of dominated by Catholicism, and you wouldn't, 20 years ago, that would have been impossible. It just never would have happened. And now they're voted for kind of marriage equalities. So I think there are societal changes happening there, and that will spread its way through to education. It's got to. It's accepted by society and saying, hey, this is good. Then it has to make its way into education.
It takes time. I mean, I was that geek. I mean, I remember going back to my school and telling them that I got a job at IBM. Which was one of the top jobs that and I graduated in a recession, so there were no jobs anywhere, and all they could say was, well, you always were that way inclined, and it was like, they actually wrote to my parents and said, keep her away from that BBC B computer because she's spending too much time programming on it and not enough time doing home. And I can remember my dad was like, the reason I bought you a BBC, I mean, I was a terrible programmer. I was what they called an eventual programmer. I got there eventually, and it wasn't particularly pretty. But that was the reason why I bought it. And it was like, I'm not going to buy you a console. If I'm going to buy you a computer, you're damn well going to get one that you're actually going to learn something useful.
And it was interesting on the panel. One of the panelists mentioned something, and so I paused and asked the audience and said, how many of the women here actually chose to go into IT, and was maybe maybe a quarter, and so how many fell into IT, and it was probably 3/4 of them. Wow. It was interesting. I mean, I'm one of those people. I got into IT purely by accident.
Yes, so did I, completely by accident. I still really don't know how I ended up there, but I got there and I enjoy it.
Absolutely. I mean, I love this industry, but
I still see there are so few women who are at that CIO level.
I mean, one of the biggest.
I've never worked in a company where we've had a woman as a CIO. Well, I know they're out there, but
the British Computer Society did a survey, so Women in IT 2014, and so it's less than 7% of women are at the C level in IT. So, and the panel we're talking about, but we do have who are our poster champions. You know, we have those people out there, but we're not pushing them. We're not showing the young girls. You know, look at Cheryl Stanley. Look at all these people that have made it and are doing well and are having families and children, and have been able to do all that. It's not. There are no restrictions really.
Yeah, it's not mutually exclusive. You can actually have it all, and in society now, it's become a lot easier to have it all because of your options for remote working, and you can still have an integral part in a company and still be at home.
But it is those perceptions. I mean, Cheryl in the book even says, you know, when she had her family and she said, I want to go home and have dinner with my kids, she felt guilty leaving Facebook at 5 p.m. Even though she could still work remotely. People are going to start pointing the finger and saying she's not pulling her weight, she's going home at 5. It's those sort of perceptions we've got to overcome.
I think even as a dad myself, I mean, there was a time when that would have been less acceptable, but now, absolutely, it's my right to do that.
Yeah, of course it is.
And there is a period of time when your kids are younger where you are actually sharing the load a little bit more and stuff like that. But actually, you know what? You have to, you know, I want to be actively involved. And those kind of old ways of doing things and stuff like that, it is disappearing. It is absolutely disappearing in such.
I think it is eroding. I just think it's slow progress.
It's taking its time.
Yeah.
But I think as well as the education and societal changes, which will take a period of time to actually eventually filter through so we see the effect on the workplace, I think initiatives like the technology thing I was mentioning, initiatives like that show the accessibility of an industry. Because I think a lot of people don't know, hey, actually, I could consider this a career, or I could actually do this stuff, and it's ideally suited to working from home and things like that. You know, you spend a few hours kind of developing apps and whatever else. I think one of the responsibilities we have is to broadcast that information and basically say, hey, you know what? This industry is actually more accessible than you might think.
It is. It's more accessible than most.
Absolutely. I agree. Yeah.
Well, thank you for spending some time with us this
been a
afternoon,
pleasure.
Piers. It's been great chatting to you.
Thank you.
And probably see you back over the other side of the world in a couple of months' time in Sydney, the ITSM Australia event.
Just noticed, by the way, while we're on this subject, how outnumbered the...
Yeah, we don't want to use that word token.
Thank you.